So welcome, Sangha. It's a very special day for me today. I've been teaching from my book, Reignite Your Power. But today is the first time that I'm teaching after the book is actually published. So it's a very special day for me. The book was published, was born into this world on Monday. And it's a very different way to be when somebody called me a published author. That was another new identity to wear, which was surprising to me. But I'm sitting before you speaking about a topic that I've taught and talked about since 2010. This is how mindfulness brings about our resiliency, right? So first and foremost, I want you to take a moment and I'll describe a resiliency scale to you that I use throughout the book. It's a subjective scale. So in your mind, think about from 0 to 10, 10 being most resilient, where you're wide open, open-hearted, breathing well, things feel good, So that is a 10. And a 1 will be high stress, right? So somewhere at 5, you'll be in the middle, right? So take a moment and sense, where are you at in this subjective resiliency scale? Pick a number. What that does for you is, as we go through this Dharma talk, and again, if I had done this resiliency scale with you before you started the chanting, you'd be in a different place now. But of course, I did not want to interrupt our chant. I did not want to interrupt our meditation. So just taking a moment, sensing into your resiliency scale, keep that in your mind, because that's how we give feedback to our brain that a particular activity, how has that shifted my nervous system? At the end of this talk, at the end of our Sangha today, you can see where your resiliency scale is, right? I can already tell you that it actually will be higher, because that's why you come back to the Sangha. We come back to our meditation practice just for that reason, because we don't really realize in a conscious way how much is the benefit from our Sangha, right? So my topic today is resiliency, and now it's a word that we hear often, but we don't recognize it in our own self, because it appears very quietly in our life. It doesn't look like strength or steadiness, but actually what it really looks like is that trembling breath with which you manage to stay with a difficult moment when you were sitting in meditation, right? Or at the end of a stressful day when your breath is not so steady, you still sat in meditation. Or it's those moments when you're in the midst of an argument with your beloved and you just want to shut down, you want to leave the room, but you stay. You're present for them, right? Those are the moments that are, over time, your resiliency has built and brought you there. And to quote Rumi, sometimes resiliency is nothing more than, as he says, the crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture, right? Sometimes resiliency is just our ability to stay with that crowd of sorrows that have wiped our house empty of furniture. And we are standing in the middle of this empty home and we are starting over. Now, in the Buddhist tradition, resiliency isn't about powering through overwhelming life events, what we call dukkha. It's a soft-lived honesty. It's our ability to sit with our experience without abandoning ourselves. It's our ability to sit with our experience with gentleness and with kindness. Now, with over 20 years of working with trauma survivors, I've come to see that resilience is a deeply human capacity, and it grows in very small and ordinary moments. There's no dramatic breakthrough. There's no sudden transformation. It's just one breath by breath. It's one feeling by feeling. And it's slowly knitting together into a steadier inner life. That's what resiliency is. It's a time when, we have anxiety, we have socio-political division, we have climate grief, and we have personal heartbreak that heavily weighs on us in so many ways, right? And resiliency is about coming and being present with all of that. It's a way that we stay connected with humanity. That's resiliency. And it's our ability to choose our thought patterns, our emotions, and our behaviors that make us happy. That is what we practice in Buddhism, right? It's our ability, because Dharma is about being happy. So how do we let go and we come back into happiness? That is what the Dharma is teaching us, and that's what resiliency. So I want to share with you a story about my dear teacher, friend, and colleague, Raja Selvam. And, we are teaching this day together on the next Sunday on emotional resilience. And he's been doing this work for decades, for like more than 30 years. And he has led trauma outreach programs to heal tsunami survivors in southern India and also the war survivors in Sri Lanka. So I'll read to you what I wrote about him, about his experience. So in southern India, where he's from, he went with his team to villages that were devastated by a tsunami. The fishermen were terrified to go back into the ocean that had killed people and destroyed their homes. Raja's team worked with tsunami survivors with trauma symptoms in the fishing villages. Only one session. They did follow-up surveys with the villagers at 6 months and then again at 1 year after that initial treatment. And they found that a significant number of them had continued to remain free of the trauma symptoms. They had released the trauma. The fishermen were able to go back to their livelihood of fishing, and the wives no longer had panic attacks when their husbands were at sea, right? So that is the resiliency. The whole village would get together and do the practices together. And if somebody fell off, they would bring them back into the community and do the practices. And so that's how they built their resiliency, right? And they continued with that. Now, from mindfulness and somatic perspective, resiliency has 3 intertwined qualities. The first one is when the body is activated, it's our ability to settle our body down into relaxation response. The second is a heart that can stay open enough to heal and to feel. And the third is a mind that trusts its ability to meet life moment by moment. And these are qualities we learn to practice in our mindfulness practices. When these qualities begin to work together, we experience a groundedness that doesn't deny our suffering, but it also isn't undone by the suffering. Right? So let's talk about how resiliency develops. It develops very slowly, almost imperceptibly, as you may have noticed. Over time, as you're doing a Dharma practice, small little changes, right? And it begins with the body, with practices that help us recognize when we are bracing, when we are holding our breath, or tightening, or wanting to run away with fear. So as we sit in meditation, we tenderly hold our unspoken fears as we did, with one hand on the chest, one hand on the belly. Slowly our exhale deepens and we feel the floor beneath our feet. And it's these small gestures that we did in our meditation that really remind our nervous system that it too can come home and return to a steadier rhythm. And over time, we strengthen resilience through mindful awareness of our breath, through grounding and somatic practices in our body, and through deep listening to the messages of our body and honoring them. So for example, if you were to go into a room, and even if the room is full of friends or your colleagues, you may you may become aware of feeling unsafe, and your fight or flight or freeze response may come up. This is a moment when, if you take time out of self-compassion and tend to your body, tend to these feelings of lack of safety rather than ignoring them, supporting yourself in the middle of lack of safety is a radical act of self-compassion and self-love. Once we learn to be compassionate towards ourselves, then automatically compassion arises towards the suffering of others. Community, we strengthen resilience through community and connection with friends and loved ones, as we are doing over this holiday season, as we are doing in our Sangha, right? Keeping healthy boundaries to support our mind, heart, and body. And we also build resiliency with the willingness to feel our feelings, even when it's uncomfortable to be present to ourselves and to others. So these practices don't eliminate difficulty or the dukkha in our life, right? But they give us more room to be with our dukkha, with our suffering, in a kind and gentle way. Someone who's healing from trauma, even if they notice a single breath, or notice that, oh, my shoulders are risen, and they drop their shoulders. Even those little moments matter, because each of these is interrupting a pattern, and it opens up something that's more spacious that arises within you, and it allows you to experience self-love and self-compassion. Okay? So let's take a moment to talk about some of our mindfulness practices that support resiliency. Now, mindfulness, from my perspective, is at the heart of resiliency, because it teaches us how to return over and over again to our body, to our breath, to this moment where our heart can rest and healing is possible, right? So it gives us a place to stand internally, especially when our life feels shaky. So here are some mindfulness practices which we have already done today. The first one being the chanting practice. What you notice if you do your chanting practice, if you have a chanting practice at home, is you might consider doing the resiliency scale before you start your chanting. And then chant out loud, because that moves the throat, moves the breath. And then after 20 minutes of chanting, check in with your resiliency scale. Even if this is the same situation that you're facing in your life, you'll find that your resiliency scale has actually increased. There's something about chanting and the deeper breathing that comes from chanting that increases our relaxation response. The second thing that I want to share with you is the somatic grounding. Again, this one I led you through in our meditation, where you feel your feet that are supported by the earth. You notice your breath through your body, in your belly, in your chest. You sense the weight in your body, the weight of your arms, the weight of your elbows, right? And that allows your shoulders to drop. These are very simple anchors, but what they do is they help steady the nervous system. And they remind us that we are here in this moment and in this sacred now, and that we can meet what is arising and passing. We can meet that with kindness and gentleness. And that slowly builds the muscle that you can meet bigger and bigger difficulties in your life with that same kindness and gentleness. And that is building your resiliency in facing the life events. So the other one that I want to, in the interest of time, I'm going to skip one, but I want to share this last one here with you, is what I call, in my book, I call this NNPCO. It's notice, name, pause, and choose otherwise. Okay, so I have created this little acronym for me to remember and for my students and clients to remember. So notice what is happening in your body, sensations or emotions or thoughts that are arising. It's surprising how little we actually notice, right? Second thing is name it. Name it softly, not with the harsh voice of an inner critic, right? And then pause. A pause can be anything, where you go for a walk, you do your dishes, you take a shower, you maybe eat ice cream. I don't mind, anything. Take a pause that takes you away from that situation or from that thought pattern or that emotion. And then lastly is choose otherwise. Do something different in terms of the action or emotion, so that you're not cycling in that same action and emotion or behavior that is pulling you into dukkha. Okay? So this small sequence, what it does is it creates some space inside of you, so there is less reactivity. And when you have that little space, then choice is possible, right? And this is one of the core practices of resilience, is remembering that we have options. And we have the ability to choose our thought patterns, choose our emotions, choose our behavior, right? Like we did in our meditation. We started our meditation with gratitude for this space. So I'm going to read you a poem, and it's going to take me just a couple minutes to read this poem to you. So I'm ending on time. And I want to show you with this poem how Portia Nelson in this poem, there is a hole in my sidewalk, how she is actually using this notice, name, pause, choose otherwise. Okay. So she says, I walk down the street. There is a deep hole in the sidewalk. I fall in. I'm lost. I'm helpless. It isn't my fault. It takes forever to find a way out. I walk down the same street. There is a deep hole in the sidewalk. I pretend I didn't see the hole. I fall in again. I can't believe I'm in the same place, but it isn't my fault. It takes me a long time to get out. Third time, I walk down the same street. There is a deep hole in the sidewalk. I see it. Step 1, notice. It took her the 3 times to walk down that street to finally notice. I still fall in. It's a habit. My eyes are open. I know where I am. She's now naming it. It is my fault. She's naming it. I get out immediately. I walk down the same street. There is a hole in the sidewalk. And this time there is a pause. So she says, I walk around it. Okay? And now, as the last step, she's choosing otherwise. So she says in her last sentence, I walk down another street. Why bother walking down the same street, falling into the hole over and over again and dealing with the same situation, right? So that is your practice for notice, name, pause, and choose otherwise. Do something different. Because it's these small choices, they are not trivial. They shape how your nervous system learns to respond. They give us the lived experience of this too shall pass as I stay with it. And I can stay with this just for one moment, just for one moment, just for one moment. And over time, these ordinary moments, they weave themselves into a steadier, more grounded way of being. Okay? So with that, I want to bring my talk to a close and open up for any questions if you may have, or if there are no questions, then we can end here. Again, deep gratitude for your presence, for your Dharma practice. And I'm here for any questions that you may have. And if you would prefer to continue, if you prefer to continue in this direction, then, please join us for the Spirit Talk Day with Raja and I. That's on next Sunday on emotional resilience. Thank you so much. And offer the Dharma and our practices and the benefit that has arisen from our practice to the benefit of all beings. So now I'm available for any questions you may have. I know some of you have to leave on time, so I just wanted to make sure that we close on time. I think you can, if you raise your hand, maybe I can unmute you, or maybe you can unmute your own self. Whatever you prefer. So if no other questions, maybe we bring our time together to a close. Yeah? Okay. Thank you all for your Dharma practice. Thank you. So deeply grateful to be part of our Sangha today. Have a wonderful rest of your day.